There are apparently some major issues for Deion Sanders in Colorado in Boulder with their culture. It's not what I was told, but that's what's being reported.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com. It's FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and make sure to tune in every single day so you can keep up with the latest on the Colorado Buffaloes with yours truly. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I think we all know where this is going. Colorado football. If you type in Colorado football on Google, you get quotes like chaotic culture, guns, fights, and money, and like all this stuff, all these things that are happening, right? And it's one of those things where there was a report released recently, and let's just say that it was a report that was not confirmed by people I have talked to around the program, or I've talked to who are on the beat, around the program. I've talked to people who are formerly a part of the staff, and that is not what I was told. So I can't attest to what was said in the article. Now, I have to clarify a couple things because I think there's been a lot of confusion around the story. I did not write the story. I am not affiliated with that portion of Athlon that wrote the story. That is just not my role. If you guys didn't know this, I am with Athlon Sports. I cover various programs. I cover all of college football for the Trending News team. But that specifically was not me. That was not the site. That was not a part of this site I'm with. And it was a report that alleged quite a few things. One of them, which it was conducted of interviews of anonymous players where they were anonymous and former players, which I think is something worth noting. I think we've kind of learned that when you leave or when people leave Colorado, there's sort of we've noticed that there's a common theme, which is there isn't always great things to say about the program. And so I think you have to take everything that is said with a grain of salt. I also think you have to take everything that is written about Colorado with a grain of salt because we know that there's sort of a willingness now more than ever to sort of trash programs. And whether any of this stuff happens, I mean, we'll have to wait and see if there's more reports that confirm it. Right now, some respected people that I know and trust on that beat as well have not confirmed what was been said and have kind of just said you have to take everything that is said by departing players with a grain of salt. And so here's what the allegations were. The story says one of the incidents involved Cormani McClain. It says Cormani was taking a lot of heat from everyone. This is according to a former player. At the same time, Coach Prime was saying he was in the doghouse and needed to improve. Cormani was getting bullied by Shiloh Sanders. After the Oregon State game, Shiloh slapped him several times, which left Cormani screaming, "I'm going to kill you," repeatedly. After that, you could tell he wasn't mentally there. It's hard when the coaches you trust are calling you derogatory names on the practice field. So that's one thing. So we have Cormani McClain getting bullied by Shiloh Sanders. Another player that was interviewed in the story said Cormani was taking a lot of heat from everyone. At the same time, Coach Prime was saying he was in the doghouse. Cormani was getting bullied by Shiloh Sanders. I just read that. It said, "I'm going to kill you." After that, you could tell he wasn't there, blah, blah. And so there was also an alleged gambling debt of over $10,000 between so it says Caleb Mathis, or days after the Seton-Washington melee, which there was a fight or some sort of kerfuffle, if you will. It says there was a debt between backup quarterback Colton Allen and wide receiver Caleb Mathis. It says that Mathis was asked to pay Allen over a gambling debt in excess of $10,000. According to the former player, when Mathis refused, he allegedly proceeded to punch Allen repeatedly in the locker room, with players and coaches witnessing the assault. Allen allegedly refused to discuss the matter, fearing repercussions due to Mathis's connection to Prime's father's, or excuse me, connection to Coach Prime's staff. Obviously, his dad is one of the coaches, and then it brought up an instance when Chidozie Nwankwo committed to Colorado, and there was a firearm on the table in the background, which at the time it was confirmed by his father it was his, and there was really no need to fret over that. So realistically, yeah, it's the biggest story in college football right now. Why wouldn't it be? A little background on where I was when this broke. I was on a trip, which, mind you, I probably still sound sick. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but I feel better. For those of you who have been asking, I appreciate it. I was on a trip to Atlanta with my girlfriend, eating Ethiopian food for the first time. Really good. 10 out of 10 recommend. Went to a little spot in Atlanta called Desta. It was really good. I went there. I bought a cool shirt from Madewell as well. So I was just out there vibing, living my best life in Atlanta, taking a little time off before the season starts. And then I kid you not, I have dozens of people texting me, tagging me on Twitter, like, what is going on? Like, why is this happening? Like, what is going on here? And I'm just like, here's what I'm going to say about the situation. I've talked to people around the program. I've talked to people who cover the program very closely. And I'm just going to say, from what I was told, they are not aware of this. They were not aware of any of these things happening. That's all I have to say about the matter. Um, I'm not going to pretend like a former player wouldn't have said that, because I think we've seen when players leave programs these days and are given a microphone, I think they're willing to say a lot of things. I think we saw that with a certain backup signal caller who left the program and kind of did an interview discussing why Shador Sanders wasn't like no Fafita or whatever it was. And so I realistically think that, was there a possibility that this stuff was said? Yeah, probably. But since it's under the cloak of anonymity, we'll never know who said it. And for those of you asking for the reporter to reveal his sources, that's not how it works. You would just love your sources in most cases to go on the record if you're going to write a story that big. Um, but yeah, really tough scene in Boulder. I think Colorado's handled it well. They've kind of shut it down, kind of haven't really addressed it in the sense of like they're not letting it hang over them, because they have T minus 20 something days, 22 days, I believe it is, until week one, till North Dakota State rolls into town. So they don't need any distractions. I just felt the need to address this because obviously I hadn't talked about it just yet. Like I said, I was on a trip with my girlfriend in Atlanta. Um, and I'm just going to say that's not what I was told about Colorado. And I don't think, I think it'll be interesting to see what else comes out of this story. Let's just put it that way. When we come back, people keep asking me, is it a successful season for Colorado to make a bowl game? Or is it not? If they don't make one, is it still a failure? I'm here to tell you why it's bowl game or bust for the Buffs in 2024. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Let me tell you about FanDuel because they got all the deals. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets at any time I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Excuse me. So head over to FanDuel. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by the Locked on Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So I want to thank you guys. I want to appreciate you guys. I do appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Like I said, we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share this with friends, so that way we can continue to grow this community as the season rolls around. Let's talk about bowl game or bust for Colorado. I've been asked, I think, 6 times in the last week. And I think I'm going to be asked a few more times because I'm making a few appearances on various podcasts and radio shows. Is a bowl game a successful season for Colorado? And the short answer is yes, but the realistic answer is they've added so much talent, right? They bring in a whole new offense line, whole new defense line. They bring in a ton of talent in the secondary. They add weapons galore at receiver, at running back, you name it. They have a lot more talent everywhere on the field. They also are stepping into a Big 12 conference that, while it is more competitive than the Pac-12 was from top to bottom, it's not nearly as top heavy as the Pac-12 was. So there's more opportunities for them to win. And so when people ask you or ask me, is a bowl game enough for Colorado? No, the bowl game is the bare minimum. Like, if they don't make a bowl game in year 2 of Deion Sanders, something has gone horribly wrong. Like, I don't know if it's a key injury. I don't know if it's like the coaching staff is like just completely lost their marbles and don't know what they're doing. I don't know what would lead to that, but it would be something that extreme because this team is far too talented to finish below 500. I personally have them going 7-5. Like, that is my record prediction right now. I think it's tough for me to predict more wins because I haven't seen them play. You know, most teams, when you make record predictions, it's like, think of like Ole Miss, for instance. They're a preseason top 5 to top 10 team. And people are like, "Oh, Miss, really?" And it's like, yeah, look at, they return a quarterback. They have great weapons. They added a lot of talent on the defense, and they also had some key contributors returning. So it's like we've seen their core play together, right? With this Colorado team, we have not seen the core play together. This offensive line has not played together in a real game. The defense line has not played together in a real game. The secondary, while they have great talents, has not played together in a real game. So there are so many question marks, so many unknowns about this Colorado team, this Colorado program. It's like, okay, how can I commit to saying that they are going to finish with X amount of wins when I haven't seen them play? I personally just think that based off what we saw from last year, from Shador Sanders, from Travis Hunter, from a Coach Prime led team, I think they're due for more wins. I think they are in better position to protect the quarterback. I think they're in better position to slow down other offenses. And I think they're in better position to be on the right side of close games, which I do think there's going to be close games. I saw a stat the other day. It was like 40, I think it was like high 49% or 46% of Big 12 games in 2023 were one score games, right? So that's madness. Madness is about to ensue in the Big 12. Like, that is just how things work in the Big 12. It is going to be close. It is going to be hectic. And that's Big 12 football, baby. Like, that is just how it rolls. So it's hard for me to be like, yeah, this Colorado team, I've seen them just do this, this, and this. It's like we haven't seen them do anything against anyone else yet. So we have to see. But still, I think they've made the proper upgrades. I think the coaching hires that they've made are interesting. I think they could work. And so 7-5 is my sort of floor, or that's my prediction right now. I don't want to say it's my floor. The floor is 6-6. If they don't make a bowl game, I really don't know what we're talking about when December rolls around. Like, I think a sub 500 season for Colorado, I think people are being put on the hot seat. You really have to question, like, is this working out? Is this something that could be sustainable? Are we going to have to adjust roster builds? Like, if Colorado finishes below 500, I just don't really know, like, what the next step is. Like, I just don't. Like, I don't think that'll happen, but that would be my genuine response, is like, I don't know what happens next because this is not how it's supposed to go. But people keep asking me, is it a good year? If Colorado makes a bowl game, I think it's a great year. I think we should not take away from what Deion Sanders is trying to accomplish here. I think anytime you could go from 1 wins to 4 wins to at least 6 wins, great trajectory, great improvement. But like I said, that is the bare minimum for this team, I think. I think they should realistically be in position to contend for the Big 12 title when the latter months of the year roll around. Like, it should be October, November, and we should sort of be talking about, like, hey, I think that there's a real chance for this Colorado team if they do this, this, and this. They're making some noise late in the season, right? That's what it seems like in my head. I don't know if that's what's going to come to fruition, But that is how I view the season. Like, this team is far too good to sort of fall below the line of mediocrity. If they do, I think we're going to have bigger problems at hand than whatever usually plagues teams throughout the year. So that's my take on it. I think they have to make a bowl game. Anything other than a bowl game, very much a disappointment. And I think a bowl game is just a start for them. I think they have a lot to achieve in 2024. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about 3 games that I think could be potential trap games for the Colorado Buffaloes. But first, this episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow. And I want to again, thank you guys for making me your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin, gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussions on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. So let's get into this trap game phenomenon. What is a trap game? For those of you who aren't familiar, a trap game is a game where you should win this game, right? This is a game where they typically come at the worst times, where it's like you're playing this game after the biggest win of your schedule, or like you play your biggest rival next week, and this week or this game's right before, or it's right after you just beat that team. Like, a trap game is basically a loss that comes at the worst time imaginable. And so I look at Colorado's schedule, and there's 3 that stand out to me the most. So let's run through them. I think the most obvious one is week 1. Obviously this isn't a instance where Colorado's played a game yet, but you just look at what's at stake here when they play North Dakota State. The North Dakota State Bison are a perennial power at the FCS level. They've won like 9 titles. They are basically the Alabama of the FCS. They dominate the game on the ground. They dominate the game on defense, and they're just physical and far more talented than every team at the FCS level. They've produced NFL quarterbacks like Trey Lance, Carson Wentz, Easton Stick. They just always have talent, right? And so they've also beaten Power 5 teams before. They beat a top 10 Iowa team before. They've beaten Kansas, Minnesota. They've beaten good teams before, solid teams, solid programs. And so for Colorado to open the season with them, where usually you want to open your season against a Taco Bell Tech or a Del Taco University kind of vibe, where it's a program where you can hang 50 on them. You get the rust off, you shake the rust off, and it's like, okay, we threw for 600 yards, we gave up 0 touchdowns, we got the freshmen in, we got the walk-ons in, great, now we're ready to get the season going. Like, this is not that type of game. This is not a rollover game by any means. And I do think that Colorado has a chance to lose this game. I think the odds makers think the same. If you look at, I'm going to pull up ESPN real quick on my handy dandy telephone. Colorado is favored for this game, but not by much. They're only favored by 8.5 points. For reference, that's not great. I would say most times you play an FCS opponent, you want to be favored by 20, 30. So this is very much a losable game for Colorado. And I do think if they lose week 1 at North Dakota State, it's not going to derail their whole season. But gosh, that would be quite the punch in the nards. Let me tell you, that would be an absolute brutal loss to start the year. So that's that's trap game number 1 for me. Trap game number 2, I think comes a month later, or I guess 2 months later. You go in October, you have a bye week after the UCF game. You have Kansas State, you have at Arizona, and then you have Cincinnati right before the bye week. That game is eerily similar to the Stanford game this past year, where that was right before a bye week, before they played the tougher stretch of their schedule. And Colorado obviously blew that game. They lost after having a 29-0 lead. It was just an utter disaster. And so Cincinnati, probably the worst team in the Big 12. But like I said, the Big 12 is competitive. Any team could be anyone. And so if Colorado again goes into a bye week ahead of their games against Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State with a tough loss to Cincinnati, who knows where they are at that point in the season? Like, are they needing 3 wins to make it to a bowl game? Are they needing 1 win? Like, that could really take the wind out of your sails, because that's a winnable game. They should be favored against Cincinnati. It's at home. Cincinnati's not that good. And so if you lose that game, it's like, oh, right before the bye week again, unfortunate timing. That's kind of when the season fell apart last year for the Buffs. And then just have to sort of deal with the fact that, yeah, that's an embarrassing loss. We needed to win that game. And then my third and final trap game. So far we had North Dakota State week 1, and then you have, let's see, what week would that be? Week 6, 7, 8, week 9 against Cincinnati. I think another trap game is probably 2 weeks later at Texas Tech. And you're probably like, how can that be a trap game? They're not supposed to win that game. I think Texas Tech, of their last 4 games, is probably the worst team in November. They have at Texas Tech, against Utah, who I think is the favorite to win the Big 12, at Kansas, who's another really good team, and then Oklahoma State, who was the runner-up in the Big 12 this past year. That's the most winnable game of the 4. Even though Lubbock is a tough place to win, Texas Tech is the most beatable team of that month. So if you lose there, oh gosh, that would just be a tough way to start off that month, because you don't know. I think realistically, a successful November is going 2-2. Like, obviously, best case scenario, you go 4-0 and you win out, but that's the best case scenario for every team ever to ever play a sport. I think the best case for Colorado is to go 2-2, 3-1. But if you lose that game, and then you have to beat 3 teams that are probably going to be fighting for contention in the Big 12 title game, that's a tough scene. So those are my 3 trap games. What do those 3 teams have in common? Well, you look at North Dakota State. They're physical. They'll run the ball. Cincinnati, not as physical, not as gifted at running the ball, but they do have some talent. Texas Tech, they have one of the best running backs in the country. So I think it's those teams where they can run the ball, and it's also the timing, right? North Dakota State is week 1. Colorado doesn't have any way to shake off the rust before that. Cincinnati's right before the bye week, where it's before the bye week that before they really focus on the rest of the season, like before they really have to go down the stretch and win some tough games to sort of contend or maybe fight for a bowl game. And then Texas Tech, same thing, right before they have a really tough stretch. So those are my 3 trap games for Colorado. You guys comment below, which one is the trappiest for Colorado, right? Which one do you think they have to worry about the most? Let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. I appreciate you guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And I will see you guys tomorrow.